Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Today we are going to talk about East India Company. It was a company which entered in different countries of the world for trade purposes, and it was during 16th century and after that up to 18th century, and even in the 19th century it had the control of some parts of the world. In the subcontinent, when East India Company came, it was year 1600, and then in the beginning they started trade, and afterwards slowly and gradually they started taking over the rule of the subcontinent also. We are going to discuss about all these details, and it was a very interesting process through which they took over the country where they were traders, and afterwards they became the rulers of that country. We are going to move ahead with all these interesting details about East India Company and its establishment of its rule over the subcontinent step by step, year by year. So we are subscribe the channel. We are going to move ahead with very interesting details. Watch the video up to the end and share it with your friends. Now, if we see this first page, we will be able to see that the rulers of subcontinent were very well established, and they ruled the subcontinent. Muslim rule was there in the subcontinent, and they ruled the subcontinent for almost 900 years. Before them, there was the government of Aryans who were Hindus, and afterwards it was Muslims rule for a long period of time. Muslims allowed British to come and do their trade through ships. They were coming from England and they were meeting different kings here. They were using old ships and bringing their goods from England to subcontinent and taking subcontinent's raw materials to England for trade purposes. And in this manner, they were earning a lot of money. After some time, when they established their trading posts in this manner along with the oceans, they established themselves with an army also, and they started bringing ammunition also. There were different wars fought between the local rulers. In the beginning, these British East India Company fought wars against its competitors of trade, and later on they started fighting wars against the local rulers also. This is General Clive, who fought wars, and first he was the one who conquered first provinces like province of Bengal, and martyred Sirajuddaulah, and after that, one after other, there were different areas which were conquered. This is one war scene. This is General Macaulay, and he's known as Lord Macaulay also, who gave his educational policy, and through which they decided to spread Christianity in India to get rid of opposition of Indians against the British. So this kind of policies were there. Now let's see the rest of the slides and the situation step by step, slide by slide. So British traders, they started using different ships for trade purposes, and wherever they were going, their purpose was trade, but later on they were establishing their colonies in all those parts of the world. And in this manner, many parts of the world were under British control. Now, when they came to subcontinent, this is the flag of East India Company, and this is the flag of Britain. So whenever this flag, trade flag, was entering in some country, it was considered as that it was after this, it was going to bring the Union Jack or British flag also in that country. So in the subcontinent, when British started earning a lot of profits, they became very much interested because raw material was very cheap, and Indian markets were full of customers which had the demand of for Indian public from the industries of England. So England had a lot of industries, but they had not raw material. Subcontinent had a lot of public, but they had not machine industries. So in this manner, Indians and British were exchanging raw materials and finished goods with each other, and both sides were earning profits. Later on, British focused upon that which commodities were most beneficial for them. So cotton, spices, and hides were the most beneficial species which they were taking to their countries. And then they started working for these species for trade purpose and earning a lot of profit by them. They noticed that Dutch and French and Portuguese companies also, trading companies, were also already working here, and they were also trading these commodities to their countries and earning a lot of profit. So sometimes there were differences in the prices, and British wanted their full monopoly over the market, that they wanted to buy things on their own rates rates of their own choice, and they wanted to sell their commodities on higher rates like which they liked. So for this purpose, it was important to oust those trading companies and to establish British East India Company's monopoly. So it was a kind of trade competition situation in India at that time. In the meanwhile, a British East India Company started thinking that they must develop their friendly and acceptable relationship with local people. So for this purpose, Macaulay introduced a teaching strategy in which they were going to teach English language and Western values and Christianity to the local people. And these schools were were welfare schools, free schools, and those were some of those were residential schools where students were staying and they were having their meals and good quality education. Also, they were learning English language, but along with that, it was a problem that those students were learning Christian norms and values, and plus they were going away from their religion. So this was not acceptable by Muslims, Hindus, and Sikh communities, and so they started reacting against this educational reform, which was brought by East India Company in different areas of the subcontinent. Along with that, British wanted more acceptability because language could develop this kind of acceptability between both the communities and they could understand each other if they had language. So that is why in all those areas where British East India Company started getting power, they started introducing English language and they started replacing local languages of Persian and Sanskrit. And in place, along with that language change, they started bringing in Western culture also. And that Western culture was going to abolish Parda and Eastern cultures and religious cultures which were there in this area. And they started bringing such a culture which was more acceptable for English people. Another agreement which was introduced in those times by East India Company was known as a doctrine of lapse. It was in 1852, and that was the time when the trade activity was at the peak. And local governors and rulers were looking at British traders as the very wise persons, and they were looking at the weapons and commodities which they were bringing, and they were interested to buy those weapons and the training of using those weapons also. So many local governors of the subcontinent started buying those weapons from East India Company traders, and they started getting the training also for their soldiers. For this purpose, if they could not pay directly to East India Company generals, then they were going to sign an agreement of interest-based loans, and those loans were payable without any time limit, but these were interest based, so with time those were becoming enlarged and those were becoming larger, and kings were responsible and governors were responsible to pay back that loan. Another thing in doctrine of lapse was introduced, that if king or governor was unable to pay back the loan, his son who was going to become the king after him was responsible to pay that loan back, but the restriction was that must be a son, not a daughter. And if the governor or king had no son, then the British were going to take over the states of those governors and kings. So this was doctrine of lapse. According to that doctrine, they captured many of the local lands also along with the governor's lands, and that caused a very much displeasure in the local people against the British East India Company. Then East India Company wanted to expand its control over the subcontinent, and it had become rich and it had become more resourceful. So for keeping the control of markets and social system in the subcontinent, they introduced railway system. And it was a quick transport system from one end of the subcontinent to the other end. It was helpful to provide food from one area where it was in surplus to the other parts of the country, and it could help to control famine in different parts of the country wherever there was drought or there was no growth, because many of the lands were dependent upon rain. And if sometimes there was lack of rain, so some areas were facing lack of food at that time. So with this railway system, it was helpful to take the food items from one part of the country to the other part of country easily. Anyways, along with that, British were taking their armies and weapons also from one part of the country to the other very quickly, and they were controlling the administrative system of the country in a very effective manner with the help of railway. Local public thought that it was more than for public welfare. It was established, railway system was established for the strict control of British EIC over the subcontinent. In the meanwhile, it was also noticed that British East India Company had not only expanded its army, its control over the subcontinent, and its weapons and weapon resource was enlarged. It had started collecting a lot of taxes, but along with that, they had started interfering in the government matters of the subcontinent also. So that reaction could be seen by different rulers. For example, Sirajuddaula of Bengal reacted first against EIC. He was martyred with the help of a conspiracy which was launched by his own cousin Mir Jafar. Mir Jafar took bribe from General Clive, and he helped General Clive to kill Sirajuddaula in a war. Then Mir Qasim, his son, became the king after Mir Jafar. And Mir Qasim tried to go against British, but he was also killed, and British took complete control of Bengal. After controlling Bengal, then British started thinking that they must expand their empire and they must take over the rest of the provinces also. So in this manner, they started taking over the neighboring provinces, for example, Awadh, for example, Calcutta, Bombay. So in this manner, one after other, they were taking over the provinces, and they were establishing their control over there. One ruler who was very difficult to handle for East India Company was Tipu Sultan, because Tipu Sultan was taking modern weapons and modern training of his soldiers from French East India Company. And it was a threat for British East India Company that if he was effectively using the modern weapons brought by French East India Company, he could evacuate British East India Company, and he could defeat British East India Company and force them to leave the subcontinent. And they were earning a lot of profit from there. So in this manner, British East India Company conspired with the traitor Mir Qasim in that area. And then that was the area of Mysore where Tipu Sultan was the ruler. And in this manner, with the help of that traitor Mir Qasim, they were able to kill Tipu Sultan in a war. And then there were some other wars also fought with Rani of Jhansi, which was in Gwalior. And then in a war, when she herself was fighting along with her army, she was also killed. These are the pictures of Rani of Jhansi, and this is Tipu Sultan. And these are the situations when British were meeting local rulers and forcing them to accept the rules which were enforced by or which were introduced by British East India Company. Some of the rulers were accepting those, and some of them were fighting, like Rani of Jhansi, Tipu Sultan, and Sirajuddaula. And those who were fighting against British East India Company, they were martyred with the help of local conspirators. After this, British started taking control of the subcontinent by establishing their rules and systems also. So in those days, the British East India Company was so exploitative, and it was exploiting the wealth of subcontinent so much, and even the local public was facing the anarchy which was spread by British East India Company, and it was a cause of shame for the British government. So in British lawmaking council, it was decided, and a law was passed in England Parliament in 1784, and this law was known as Pitt's Indian Act. According to this, it was decided that Queen's rule of British government was going to take control of the Indian government also, and they were going to stop anarchy which was spread by East India Company, and there was lawlessness which was spread by East India Company. So they decided that East India Company was going to continue working just as traders, while British themselves, British government from England, was going to take direct control of all these areas, and they were going to rule these areas with some legal system and some civil services also, and some police and law and order was going to be introduced. In the meanwhile, when there were some other states also in the subcontinent, it was a large country, and those states, when they watched this situation in different parts of the country, they decided to have subsidiary alliances with the British East India Company. That British East India Company must not fight wars against them, and they must have some agreements with them that they may be able to continue ruling the subcontinent in a better manner. In 1782, Warren Hastings signed a treaty with Marathas, because Marathas were also fighting wars against British East India Company, and they wanted to establish their rule in those areas where Hindus were in majority. But later on in 1782, to stop this kind of wars, Warren Hastings signed a treaty with them. Then in the meanwhile, Tipu Sultan was creating problems for them. Then in 1799, Tipu Sultan was also martyred, and his state was taken over. After the martyrdom of Tipu Sultan, it was an easy ground for East India Company to play, and they were able to take all these areas of subcontinent one after other very easily. Even the central government of Delhi was not difficult to capture for East India Company. Then Nawab of Oudh was also defeated, and after defeating Nawab of Oudh, then next target was Delhi. And when British entered in Delhi, Mughal emperor easily signed, Shah Alam was there at that time, he easily signed an agreement in 1803 that is known as British Protection Act. And he decided that he was going to cooperate with British, he was going to give as much tax British wanted, but British must not end his government. And in this manner, he stayed in the government. And while he had the largest army and he had the largest resources, but he was the most easy target to achieve for East India Company. British also signed some agreements of protection with Sindh and Punjab. In Punjab, there was Ranjit Singh's government. It was Sikh government. Punjab was a province which was a combination of Sikhs and Muslims. In 1839, when Ranjit Singh died, then his ancestors, then his offsprings or his sons were not that capable that they could continue fighting wars or cooperating with British. So instead of fighting any kind of wars, they decided that they were going to cooperate with British. His son Gulab Singh and his grandson Hari Singh, Ranjit Singh's grandson Hari Singh, signed an agreement with British, and British allowed him to buy the state of Kashmir, and he went to Kashmir, became a ruler of Kashmir, and then stayed over there. Now Sikhs were without any ruler. So different groups of Sikhs started fighting wars against British, and finally, after a long contradiction between both of these Sikhs and British communities, then Sikhs were defeated in the Battle of Aliwal in 1846. Now you can see it was 1809 when Ranjit Singh signed the agreement. He died in 1839, and Aliwal's war was in 1846, which was quite after 7 years. So for these years, those Sikh groups kept fighting group by group wars with British, but they were unable to continue winning the war, and they were defeated finally in 1846. Then again, some wars were going on, and finally British decided to annex Punjab because now they had established their full control till 1849. So in this manner, Punjab was annexed. Next to that was the province of Sindh. In the province of Sindh, in those days, amirs were ruling, and those amirs had signed a treaty of friendship with British in 1809. Ranjit Singh also signed a treaty of perpetual friendship with British in 1809, and Sindh amirs also signed that treaty of friendship in 1809, but now British had decided that they were going to annex Sindh also. So for this purpose, Charles Napier, who was their general, started provoking amirs, and after this kind of conspiracy, amirs were afraid that Charles Napier was going to take over Sindh without any intimation, so they attacked on British residency. Though they claimed later on that it was not an attack from them, but they were blamed for this, and in 1843 they were defeated, and Sindh was also annexed, and it came under the British rule. Then British were establishing all this system. Along with that, many of the British officers, many of the British workers who were working in this country, they were getting very high salaries, not only from those areas where they had conquered those parts of the country, but in the other areas also where they had signed British protection agreements with the Shah Alam and with other Sindh and Punjab rulers. So during that time, those officers had been giving training to the warriors of those areas, and they had been taking very high salaries, and that money was transferred to England, and it was causing a constant drain of wealth from India to subcontinent to England. On the other side, very high revenue was collected from the local people who were farmers, who were having their small industries, and who were doing some trading businesses. They were all imposed with very high taxes, and that wealth was also going to England. It was said at that time by different people that British rule in those areas was like a sponge, which was drawing up all good things from the banks of Ganges, and it was squeezing them down on the bank of Thames. If we evaluate this all situation, we can see this thing. Even if Indian people, local people were comfortable with British traders and they liked them, they were working with them easily since many years. Since 1600, East India Company was working over here, and it was now up to 1809 or 1849. Till 1849, situation kept becoming worse, because now British had started interfering in the religion and culture of Indians, which was not liked by Indians. Indians were happy for trade, but not for any kind of interference. Secondly, Indians started reacting against those efforts of British when they started spreading Christianity, and they started bringing new technology like railways and telegraph, etc. So that was not liked by Indians, because they wanted to live in the same manner as they were living previously. Another evaluation, if we look at whole of this situation, we can come to know that Indians' reaction against British could be seen when finally War of Independence 1857 was fought, and it was a last effort of Indians when they tried to end the rule of British, and they tried to establish their local rule, and they were unable to do that, and finally British East India Company was able to control the whole subcontinent. So this is the end of the discussion. I hope you enjoyed the details and pictorials. Subscribe the channel and share it with your friends. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.